They are the largest creatures on earth, creatures of mystery, masters of a dark and shadowed world human eyes have seldom seen. One of the rarest and most awesome experiences in nature is this, an encounter with the living whale. More than 40 million years ago, early ancestors of modern whales adapted to the deep. They have flourished here, but retain a fateful dependence on the sunlit world above. Like man, they are mammals, warm-blooded creatures who must breathe to live. One thing about whales is not a mystery. We know precisely how many of them die. As for the rest, we have barely glimpsed this most extravagant and spectacular animal of all. Led by pioneering scientists, man and whale today are slowly drawing closer. And in these first tentative contacts, a tantalizing question rises. What does a whale do with the largest brain on Earth? Encouraged by experience with whales in captivity, the first explorers now seek the animals in their own environment. Join us now as we enter the domain of giants, the secret world of the great whales. In an age of environmental alarm, the 1970s may well be remembered as the time of the whale. Surging interest and concern for whales have created such odd spectacles as this, a 50-foot sculpture of a fin whale placed on display in a San Francisco park. The intent of the artist? To create a sympathetic bond between man and whale. For the fate of the world's largest animal lies in human hands. And to understand that the whale is in peril, one must first appreciate that such a colossal and unlikely creature exists at all. The whale has always cast an unusual shadow in the human consciousness. There is, first of all, sheer amazement that living flesh can assume such scale. Often the whale has been seen as an agent of supernatural powers. But above all, the whale has evoked man's cunning and ferocity. We have pursued the Leviathan relentlessly over hundreds of years. The scene is centuries old. A stranded whale, dead or dying, and men at work with knives and axes. In the earliest accounts and legends, the whale was feared, the animal that swallowed Jonah and only released him at God's command. At first, man had little power over whales. When a carcass drifted ashore, there was feast and celebration. But to hunt such a creature in the open sea was all but inconceivable. Then, a man first took the life of a whale and survived to boast of it. A new and romantic hero was born, the whaler. First in European and Asian waters, then spreading to the remotest seas, the pursuit of whales promised wealth and spawned adventure. By the mid-1800s, Americans of New England dominated whaling. Their land was thin and rocky, but the oceans were rich in whale flesh and whale oil. It was a brutal and risky life. Often it was difficult to say whether whales or men were in greater danger. Small boats were sometimes dragged for miles, an ordeal whalers whimsically called a Nantucket sleigh ride. Whaling out of New England in wooden ships continued into the early 1900s when these films were taken. But by then, a new era of whaling had dawned, a time of steam and steel. The hand-thrown harpoon had given way to a deadly cannon with an explosive warhead. With the range and speed of modern ships, whalers could easily penetrate polar seas where great whales mass in large numbers. Whalers learned how to inflate whale carcasses with compressed air to keep them afloat. It was a crucial discovery. Many whale species that would otherwise sink and be lost when killed now were fair game. By dissecting harvested whales, scientists had confirmed a surprising fact. The whale's anatomy left no doubt that their prehistoric ancestors were land animals with 4 legs. Although whales bear a superficial resemblance to fish, under the skin, they are more closely related to animals like camels, sheep, or elephants. But what was the natural behavior of these monsters? One fearful impression lingered, popularized in the pages of an immortal novel, Moby Dick.
Can whales do that?
Why, bless me, whales can do anything. A whale can jump up like an earthquake and come down on you like a mountain that's somehow put to sea. A whale can stave in the ribs of the biggest ships, swallow whole crews, pick its teeth with the oars. Mind, lad, if God ever wanted to be a fish, he'd be a whale. Believe that, he'd be a whale.
Herman Melville's whale was an angry white ghost of terror and destruction. This, for millions, would remain an overwhelming impression. Not until recent years has another and more realistic portrait of the whale become popular. The training in captivity of smaller whales and dolphins has done much to temper the frightening legacy of Moby Dick. To the delight of millions, these sea mammals have proved to be responsive and spectacular entertainment. Although some whales seem familiar in captivity, we have only vague ideas of their life in the wild. Killer whales, for instance, are highly social animals, roaming the seas in groups called pods. They are predators, hunting fish and sea mammals, including other whales. On the tail of a larger gray whale, tooth marks probably testify to a killer whale attack. Like most of the great whales, grays have no teeth. Their mouths are lined with baleen, a kind of strainer which traps the minute sea organisms on which they feed. The sperm whale is the only great whale with teeth, and it possesses the largest brain of any animal. Moby Dick was a sperm whale, and the species has been widely hunted for its huge yield of oil and spermaceti, a prized ingredient of cosmetics. Man is dwarfed even by a small whale like the killer, which may attain 30 feet. The smaller great whales, like the humpback, are commonly 45 feet long and weigh more than 35 tons. Sperm whales are larger still, growing to 60 feet and more. And the blue whale dwarfs all other animals. Larger than any of the dinosaurs, it can attain a weight of 196 tons. Its massive body may span 100 feet, about the size of a jetliner seating more than 100 passengers. In laboratories and oceanariums around the world, experience with captive whales may eventually provide some insights into whale behavior in the wild. Killer whales at Marineland in California recently attracted worldwide attention. The news spread swiftly. Corky, a 20-foot female, was giving birth. Captured as it happened by amateur cameras, this is the first birth of a live killer whale ever photographed. Within seconds, the baby must take its first vital breath of air. There is jubilation among the Marineland staff. The parent whales, Orky and Corky, are longtime residents of the park. It's like celebrating the parenthood of close friends.
Here's to the baby. To me. All right. Here. Hey, here's to the next baby.
The stadium tank is closed to the public so that the new calf will be undisturbed during its first days. The sounds made by the calf and his parents are carefully noted. Killer whales use clicking sounds to navigate underwater, and their various calls may be a sophisticated form of communication. Scientists are eager to see how the calf's vocabulary develops.
I think we just got some time. More time than the dolphin, like the feeling that I have.
But something appears to be wrong. The baby does not nurse immediately. No one can say whether this is normal behavior or not.
Because like this morning when I was watching it, when it was in the middle of the tank, I saw it obviously playing with some, discovering its sonar. It was just moving its head back and forth. And
well, it seems to be not terribly excited or embarrassed.
Yeah.
When it gets hungry, it'll probably start looking around.
You see, it's such a simple thing for the baby just to turn around and go to the nipple, and it doesn't.
Anxious days pass, and the calf still has not fed. The mother is watchful and attentive, but often the calf seems oblivious of her and the requirements for his survival. An around-the-clock vigil continues as observers seek the causes of his disturbing behavior.
Little calf is driving us nuts with its apparent improvements, and then particularly in the mornings, and then resuming back to the stereotype swimming mode that doesn't show any encouragement at all. It makes making a definitive decision as to how to handle the animal a very difficult one, because of course the the best way to do it is the natural way, but we feel we're running out of time.
Soon after, the decision is taken to intervene and attempt to save the calf. As the parent whales are distracted, the calf will be given an injection of an appetite stimulant. It's a tense moment. Though these killer whales are normally gentle, they could react violently when the calf is seized.
Now, keep his head up and very gently ease him forward. Ease him forward. Ease him forward. Can you go forward a little? Further. 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 Ready?
Yeah. I think she's getting mad.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Let him go. How'd we do?
Okay.
We were anxious to note the behavior of the calf as it was undergoing restraint. And I think as you saw, there wasn't much of a response. And this has been, of course, our concern all along with this calf, that it hasn't been a particularly responsive individual to the mother, to external stimuli, to anything. So we're concerned about that.
Despite repeated attempts to help, the calf does not nurse and steadily loses weight. He continues to circle the tank, scraping his head against the concrete wall.
Our night engineer called me and said that the calf wasn't doing well. I came on in and the calf was up next to the wall, and I knew it was in trouble. It was difficult to say how much trouble. So we just stayed with it, or I did for a while, and then the calf slowly sank. Corky attempted to get it to the surface, and didn't make it, and the calf didn't show really any response to want to come to the surface, and that was the end.
The loss of the calf is keenly felt. He probably suffered brain damage during labor and may have been doomed from the beginning. There's hope that Corky will someday bear another calf successfully. But now, for men and whales at Marineland, there is a period of grieving. In death, as in life, whales often defy human understanding. Mysterious strandings sometimes result in the death of 100 whales or more. Despite extensive research, we still cannot explain what drives these whales to such a sad and apparently pointless end. In July of 1976, an especially puzzling stranding was recorded on film in Florida. 30 Pseudorca whales came into shallow water. They seemed in good health, but would certainly die from overheating by the sun if they remained here long. Their chorus of strange sounds could be heard up to 50 feet away. The whales showed little fear of humans and calmly allowed well-wishers to wet their backs and apply lotion to minor sores. Most of the time, the whales were afloat and perfectly free to save themselves. As one observer noted, they seemed placidly bent on self-destruction. Finally, on the third day, one whale died. He was a large male and may have been a leader of the pod. Soon after, the remaining whales seemed more willing to move, and a concerted effort was made to drive them out to sea. Though at first reluctant, the whales made their way to safety. Did this pod of whales follow their ailing leader ashore and remain with him until they knew that he was beyond help? Scientists refuse to describe whale behavior in such human terms, but many laymen who witness such incidents become convinced that whales have emotional ties and a social order rivaling our own. At a U.S. naval base in Hawaii, a whale named Morgan has demonstrated that trained whales can be far more than acrobats and clowns. Morgan has gone to sea, accompanying a Navy vessel, but swimming free and on his own. Morgan is a pilot whale, and small by whale standards, 13 feet long and 1,200 pounds. Holding this special device in his mouth, he has been trained to retrieve dummy torpedoes from the ocean bottom. Morgan can plummet to 1,500 feet and more, deeper and much faster than any human diver. Relying on his biological sonar, he can navigate in total darkness, and he also can adjust readily to changes of pressure underwater. Unerringly, he homes in on an acoustic signal transmitted from the target. The possibilities of cooperation between man and whale in the sea are largely unexplored and seem full of promise. But fears that military research could lead to the use of whales and dolphins on suicide missions in combat have obscured the success of experiments like this one. And the great whales, whose physical strength could be matched by singular mental powers, remain far beyond our reach, mysterious denizens of the open seas. Here at SeaWorld in San Diego lived the only great whale ever to be studied in captivity for any length of time. Captured as a baby, she was a 2-ton infant gray whale named Gigi. She did well in captivity and provided a unique opportunity for intimate and sustained study. Sue Bailey, once an employee of the park, remembers.
She was a very gentle animal for being as large as she was. She's the only animal I've ever worked with that you could visibly go in the morning and see that she had grown bigger. And towards the end, she was gaining about a ½ an inch in length every day and about 100 pounds a day. And she was noticeably larger every day you worked with her. One way that we could see this is that she was growing so fast that she was shedding an entire layer of skin every day. And you just scratch her down and her skin would just peel off in sheets. She was growing so fast.
Gigi developed strong attachments to some of the people around her. Sue was one favorite. Gigi would make a variety of eerie but apparently happy noises whenever Sue was near. Gigi quickly learned to respond to simple signals. A series of pats on her colossal back announced mealtime. Due to the flexible baleen lining her mouth, she could be safely hand-fed. Gigi grew to 27 feet and 7 tons, outgrowing her tank and eating almost a ton of squid a day. It was obvious she should now be set free.
The best day I had with her was the day right before I let her go. I spent about 6 hours in the water with her, and she was more affectionate, really, than she ever had been, and was more interested in playing, and I thought a lot about missing her. She became a very large part of my life for that year.
Early one morning, in March of 1972, Gigi is returned to the ocean wilderness. To Sue, Gigi seemed nervous and frightened. Sue and Gigi's other keepers wondered how she would react to finding herself suddenly unconfined and on her own. A radio transmitter was fitted to Gigi's back. For a few weeks after her release, its signals would allow her to be followed at sea. Gigi's year-long captivity set a number of records. She is the largest live animal ever transported by man. Probably, she is the only great whale to fall into human hands and be released unharmed. And she is the only great whale, too, that humans have known intimately and come to love.
Well, when we first let her go, they put the stretcher out over the water and lowered it down. And when she finally swam out of the stretcher, she found herself being a little lost out there, I'm afraid. I was pretty shook up and doing a lot of crying that day. I'd been involved with nothing but the gray whale, and then she was gone and had to take a while to get involved in something else.
After her release, Gigi lingered a while along the California coast and then moved slowly north. Within 2 months, Gigi had joined other gray whales making their annual journey to Arctic waters, the longest known migration of any mammal. Gigi readapted to the wild, but of her ways and wanderings in the open sea, we know little. With all the great whales, she is shrouded in mystery. We have established that whales inhabit all the great oceans, and that some species migrate to polar waters in summertime when the food supply is abundant. Oddly, whales of the northern and southern hemispheres rarely, if ever, meet. Due to the opposite seasons in the north and south, one group is always heading for its polar feeding grounds, just as the other is arriving in tropical waters to breed. And it is mainly in these warm water breeding grounds that scientists have been able to observe natural whale behavior. Waters around the island of Maui in Hawaii are one breeding ground of humpback whales. The nearby town of Lahaina was once a major port for reprovisioning Yankee whalers in the mid-1800s. Everywhere in Lahaina, there are reminders of the early whalers and their quarries. In an age when some whales could face extinction, whaling nostalgia can have ominous overtones. A new consciousness is growing, a concern more for the whale's future than the whaler's past. Until recent years, the presence of humpback whales near Maui in wintertime was largely ignored by scientists and conservationists. A pioneer in local whale research and conservation, Jim Hudnall, was among the first to become interested in the humpback. For the past several winters, he has spent long days at sea watching for telltale blows.
Low.
Oh, right there.
Straight there, right.
Okay.